Hello, I'm Liz Zorab and this is Byther Farm, and today we're going to do a tour of our food forest. The food forest is now in its third year, so I planted everything 2.5 years ago, and an awful lot of things have self-sown in that time. So I have a lot of weeds which are actually really useful, and things like this red orich here, which is self-sown. I love it. It's not the greatest spinach alternative in the world, but it's not bad. This cherry tree, I love the shape of it. It's just growing almost in a globe, which is wonderful. The cherries are lovely and they're ripe, and I know that because the birds, in particular the blackbirds, have been feasting on them, and there is evidence in various places on the floor that they've actually eaten quite a lot of the cherries, including the stones, which has surprised me. But they're a lovely taste. There's a sweetness to them, but they're quite acidic. They're not one that you necessarily want to eat for pudding, but they're absolutely great to be cooked in pies, jams, jellies, and to make wine from them. Most of the apple trees are still very young, and the apples are at a stage where really I need to thin them out so that there are only a couple of apples on each cluster, which will allow them to develop into larger and tastier fruit. I currently have 8 different varieties of apples, which is really nice. It means that they are able to pollinate each other at various different times, and the crop doesn't all arrive at once. It's staggered out over a period of about 2 months. This poor old apple tree has been battered by the wind quite a lot. It really has suffered from the winds just whistling straight through at it, and part of that is because it's directly opposite the gate that leads into the annual vegetable garden, and from there I can see straight through into the field, so there is a wind tunnel that comes through here. And perhaps I need to plant something at the very back there to help reduce the wind coming through. But alternatively, it is really nice to be able to see a glimpse of the field through the trees. So this is Alstar. It's a good pollinator for several of the other trees. It's a good old workhorse. It's not the greatest of shapes, and it probably needs a prune, but not right now. They say that the best time to plant a fruit tree was 20 years ago, and the second best time is right now. And to that end, I've teamed up with Direct Plants to offer UK viewers a 20% discount on fruit trees, which is brilliant. I was so excited about this. This is not an affiliate link. I have simply asked Direct Plants if they would offer you as a viewer a discount, and they've agreed to 20% for the whole of July. So I will leave a link to their website and the discount code that you put in at the checkout in the information section below. This is not a fruit, but I am really excited to have this in the garden. This came from seeds. I had a seed head like this one, which I sowed earlier in the year, and it's produced. I've got lots of these plants, which I'm really pleased about. It has really pretty purple flowers. It makes a lovely ornamental, but it's actually a common salsify. Maybe it's salsify, but however it's said, you eat the roots. So you dig the roots up, and then you give them a boil, and you eat the inside of the roots. So you peel it like you would with a carrot, but the roots have apparently a very delicate oyster flavour. So I'm really looking forward to trying this out, if not this winter, the one after. And over here by the garden sink we have peach tree. I still can't see any peaches on it this year, which is sad, but had peaches from it last year and they were absolutely fantastic. I think the weather was just so unkind to it this year, but it's put on masses of growth, lots of lovely new growth. There was some sign of peach leaf curl at the beginning of the year. Now peach leaf curl comes down in the rain, so the easiest way to prevent getting it is to keep your plant covered between the end of January and the end of May. Well, that's not practical here. So another way to deal with it is to remove any infected leaves, a few at a time over a period of days until it's all clear. And that's what I did with this. There is no sign of the dreaded peach leaf curl on this now, and I think that's the practice I will do each year until the tree gets to the point where it's too tall for me to reach, which may not be too long. So hopefully with all this growth on top, it will also be putting out lots of new roots, and next year, as long as the weather is kind to us, we should get a really nice crop. In this area I've got raspberries and a white currant, which is looking ready for me to harvest it. I just love white currants. More raspberries here, and beyond the raspberries is a wildlife pond surrounded by raspberries and tayberries and also loganberries. So they go all around the pond. Now it's grown into an incredibly jumbly mess, which if you're a tidy gardener would be difficult, but I'm not a tidy gardener. I'm quite happy for things to get overgrown and looking a bit wild. At the front here is that particularly vicious thistle, which I'm really torn between cutting that down and getting rid of it so it doesn't blow its seeds everywhere and us end up with hundreds or even thousands of these thistles, and leaving it because the seed heads are so good for the birds in the autumn and winter. It's a real toss up between not being prickled with every step in the future and providing additional food for the birds. I think this year I will cut them down and I'll find the additional food for the birds elsewhere. Down here I've just noticed there's some parsley going to seed. I sowed, it smells nice. I sowed parsley in here 2 years ago, and this is just sowing itself everywhere. I'm really pleased with it. It makes really good ground cover. It has helped to blot out some of the weeds, although not all of them. I don't come and cut the parsley from here. I actually just like having it, and it smells great. The pheasant berry, which I planted here just over 2 years ago as a tiny seedling, has really done well, and it does these fantastic flowers with these beautiful burgundy bracts and creamy pink flowers in the middle, and then all of those will turn into a berry, and that can be harvested at the end of the year. Out in the front orchard, the pear tree is doing really well again this year. So the first year we were here, I pruned it really hard. We had quite a good flush of pears. I didn't prune it the second year, and we just had one solitary pear, which was a bit miserable, so I pruned it hard again last autumn. And apart from the fact it sends up these very upright shoots, which I can then prune back, we do have plenty of pears coming. This is a dual pear tree, so it's got two different types of pear grafted onto it. These, I believe, are Williams, I think, but these are the ones I prefer. On that side are conference pears. I'm less keen on those, but I certainly eat them. So those are the slightly rough skin ones. These got an incredibly smooth skin and are very fat and sweet. I love these. And everything out here in the front orchard is doing really well. Now it is very noisy today because my next door neighbour is having some building work done. But so we've got the pears, cherry trees here is doing really well, and both the apples are doing really well. There's a lot of weeds here that I need to get to grips with. I'm going to put down some sheet mulching. I've tried putting cardboard down and wood chip, and the weeds are growing up through it, and also across from the field across as well. So I'm going to get this sheet mulched, hopefully a year or two with it, with a large tarpaulin type sheeting over it, and that should get to grips with the weeds here. And then I'm going to underplant it with comfrey and get lots more currant bushes in this area. The currant bushes that I have in this part of the food forest are mostly black currants. There are some red currants and white currants, but mostly black. And what I did was buy in 5 or 6 different varieties so that I could grow them for a while and see which ones I like the most. And then that would allow me to decide which ones to propagate. If you want to know a bit more, I made a video about taking these cuttings and I'll leave a link for that. This particular bush is prolific in the number of currants it produces, so I'm really happy to have some more of this. And likewise, there's one over there that produces really big fat sweet currants, and that one I'm going to propagate as well. This rhubarb has done so well. I planted this, it was one of the first things I planted in this food forest, and it's expanded and spread, and it's absolutely ready to be lifted this autumn and divided. I didn't really quite get the lay of the land when I planted it here, and it really does need to be lower down. The ground slopes from here, and this quite often shows signs of stress from not having enough water. So when I lift it, I'm going to move it into the slightly damper areas. But in here, I think there's at least 5 crowns showing now, so I should be able to divide this into several pieces. Now, this variety is early Timperley, and earlier this year I bought a set of 4 other rhubarb varieties and put them at the far end of the food forest. And here we go, here's one of them. Now, I can't remember which variety it is. I have actually popped a label in here somewhere. But of the 4 that I bought, only 2 have survived, so I know I've got some more early Timperley, and I've also got some Victoria. But I guess next spring I'll be able to work out which is which, because the early Timperley will be ready to harvest first. By far the largest trees in our food forest are these plum and damson trees behind me, and they're a selection of, I don't know, possibly wild plums or wild damsons. There's also a very small yellow plum and a Victoria plum, and so those have been there for very many years. We also have our very huge elderberry tree down near the duck house, and here in the patron's garden I've also planted a smaller elderberry tree. We've been questioning my wisdom of planting this here. It's right in the shadow of the willow tree, it's right in the middle of the patron's garden, and I'm not convinced that this is the right place for it. So I have talked to Mr. J about this autumn moving this and putting it into the hedgerow where it would be more appropriate. It would be easier for it to grow really large without us worrying about it being here, and it would also get a lot more water, because the willow tree soaks up so much moisture out of the ground.